Inventory is up, homes are sitting longer, and prices, well, they're not really doing what they used to do. The Sacramento housing market just hit a point that should make both buyers and sellers a little nervous. So if you're thinking about buying a home or selling a home for 2026, this may change your plans for this year. Now, I'm not gonna pull up a bunch of big headlines or news articles, but what I am gonna do is show you some real data here in the Sacramento market so you can prepare for what's ahead in 2026. Welcome to the channel. My name is Sam Golovey and I run a local real estate team right here in the area. Now, I've grown up around real estate. My dad's been a broker for ages and I've personally been in the business now for 10 years. Now, most people wouldn't believe me if they looked at me, but we've been doing this for a while now. That being said, we've helped tons and tons of families buy and sell real estate here locally and also help people relocate into Sacramento on a weekly basis. So with all of these conversations and clients moving here into the area, I would say we have a pretty good pulse on what's going on with the local real estate market. Now, in order to see what's really ahead and in store for 2026, we should really take a look back and see what's actually been happening for 2025. Now, one of the more significant things that happened in 2025 was a huge influx of inventory coming to the market. Basically, more homes for sale coming. Now, while this was very well appreciated by local real estate professionals because we've been waiting for more homes to hit the market, at the same time, buyers didn't necessarily respond and jump right in while they were seeing more homes finally come in. Now, this was actually more homes hitting the market than we've seen in years. We're talking about pre-pandemic levels of homes finally coming to the market. Now, even though we had more homes hit the market, it wasn't as if buyers just automatically decided to jump in. A lot of people actually held off despite seeing much more opportunity. And I think a lot of that was that rates were still on the higher side and there was just overall economic uncertainty that was kind of going around. And so with that being said, a lot of people really kind of held off on moving in 2025, which I'll show you in the numbers here in a little while. Now, for the last month of December in 2025, we had 2,531 homes on the market for the Sacramento region. Now, this is actually an increase of over 15% when we compare it to the previous year. So a year-over-year stat. But this last month in December wasn't anything close to what happened in the first half of 2025. Really, it was the first half of 2025 that all that inventory or all those homes really came onto the market. And based on a recent blog from Sac Appraisal, I'll read it out. The good news is we had about 8% more new listings in 2025 compared to 2024, which is about 2,000 extra sellers coming to the market. However, the bigger story is this growth happened during the first part of the year. Sellers really pulled back from coming to the market during the second half of 2025, which was a big departure from the trend, according to the Sacramento Appraisal blog, a local appraiser here in the Sacramento area. Now, the amount of homes that sold this last month in December was 1,336, only showing about a 0.4% increase in home sales. And the homes pending was 1,103, which was just showing about a 1.7% increase year over year. Now, I think one of the biggest things that people want to know is, are home prices going to crash, right? For every year, that's probably one of the most trending topics or people Googling that all the time. So we're going to look at what's happened over this last year so you can see how prices have actually adjusted. And the median price for the Sacramento region actually came in at $575,000 this last month. Now, that price is down about 2.7% when we compare it to exactly 12 months before. And the average sold price for the area came in at $653,000, which is down about 2.1% as well. Now, when it comes to the price per square foot, that actually came in at $333, and that was showing exactly at 0% change, so you could say it was flat. Now, I love using these stats because it kind of shows the comparison of what happened this last month as of the time of this video versus the previous 12 month, like a month-to-month comparison over a 1-year span. But one thing I want to bring up here is that even though we saw some price reductions on median sales price and the average sold price, which is very important to pay attention to, I want to talk about the overall annual pricing, basically the whole year of 2025 versus 2024. And the median sold price for the Sacramento region for both years came in at exactly $595,000, basically showing a 0% change if we compare all of 2024 to all of 2025. Now, at the same time, if we compare the median sales price of $575,000, which happened this last December, the most recent pricing, and we compare it to the peak basically May of 2022, where the peak median sales price for the Sacramento area was $625,000. Well, that's a more significant drop, basically close to 3 years ago, and that drop was just about 8% in pricing. Now, one thing to pay attention to over the year is that pricing does go up and down, and it's very seasonal. You'll see even on the graph that month over month the pricing does change. That's normal for the market to do that, and really you have to consider in real estate that it's not always just up and up and up. There are going to be adjustments along the way. So with all this being said, prices have definitely been softening, but I would say every neighborhood is actually responding very differently. So we're not really seeing that huge price dip as a lot of news articles might be screaming, but we are definitely seeing prices kind of adjust a little bit, especially from the peak of 2022. Now, with more homes hitting the market, it is becoming a little bit more competitive for sellers to get their homes sold. And with buyers not jumping in right away, it's sometimes taking a little longer to find the right buyer for that home. And the average days on the market went up to 52 days this last month, which is up about 30% from what it was in 2024. But I do expect that days on market to really shorten down now that we're going to be in January, February, March, April. We're going to really start to see the market probably pick up for the spring season, which will bring down that average days on market. And it's really normal to see that every year. Now, one other interesting stat I wanted to bring up was the sale to list ratio. Basically, most of the homes sold for about 96% of what the home was originally listed for. So this is definitely showing that there has been some price reductions on listings to get properties sold. Now we're going to get into which markets are responding and are still a little bit hotter and which ones are definitely cooling off. But before we get into that, I do want to mention a lot of the stats I mentioned are very regional stats. They're looking at Sacramento region as a whole. But if you're just curious or considering how your neighborhood is responding or how the value of your home is being affected with all these changes, this is something we talk to homeowners about on a weekly basis. So if you want to know what your home is valued at or how your neighborhood is responding, you can always reach out to our team. We'd be happy to set you up on a quick consultation to see how things are going over there. Give us a quick call or text and we'd be happy to set it up. Now, what's been happening with the different markets? We have some hot markets and we have some markets that are just really cold. And I'll say the old saying goes true, especially in a changing market like this: location, location, location. That's what's selling right now. Now, with this softening in the market, people kind of holding off on buying this last year, I will say some markets were actually still pretty hot. There's definitely areas around Sacramento where there's limited inventory. So even though we had that huge influx of homes hitting the market, there's still a lot of neighborhoods that have high desirability, but maybe people are just kind of locking in and staying there. While other areas at the same time are getting a lot more inventory, a lot more homeowners wanting to get their property sold for various reasons. Now, one thing I've seen here is that the older established areas, you're probably not going to see that huge uptick of inventory, whereas areas that have been growing and expanding really fast, especially over the last couple of years, let's say post-COVID time, are really starting to see that inventory kind of make a change in their local market. But all this to say is that the market is no longer moving as one big group. It's no longer moving very cohesively up and hot, if I can put it that way. Now, some of the areas that I've recently seen have a tougher time on the sales side, especially as a homeowner, would be some areas around Natomas that have seen a lot of new construction, or these kind of more affordable homes where they just honestly built a lot of inventory. Well, with that, a lot of home buyers were buying, filling in just a couple of years ago, and a lot of investors came in as well. And now those people just a couple of years later are looking to sell those homes. So we even had a listing recently on the market. The homeowner could not get that home sold for 6 months prior with another real estate agent. They came to us and asked us for help and see if we could get that property sold. And we did our best. Luckily, we got it sold fairly quickly. But there was probably another 3, 4, 5 other listings that were on the market around us and priced pretty competitively. Another area this is kind of happening in is, new build areas like West Roseville as well. Certain parts of West Roseville have really been growing over the last couple of years. And in those pockets now, there's homeowners that are ready to sell a couple years later. But unfortunately, in these kind of newer areas, you're still competing a lot potentially with a lot of other homeowners in the area that are looking to sell and transition after a couple of years, or B, builders. So now you still have builders down the street or within a couple minutes proximity, which is making it much more difficult to sell because, of course, most home buyers, if they are looking in that region, are probably going to go check out the builder and see what they have. Now, another market, and I would say this is kind of like a segment as a whole that's been struggling a little bit, I would say would be the condos. Condos, especially if they have higher HOA fees or their HOA fees have been going up, we're seeing those really have a hard time selling, especially when the market's softening like this. Some of those condo prices are still pretty high, and with the HOA fees and rising insurance costs, they haven't been as interesting to the majority of the market. Now, they're still getting sold, don't get me wrong, but they're definitely moving a lot slower than the standard single family homes. Now, on the flip side of that, as I mentioned, more established areas don't necessarily have a lot of new construction going on, but are in a good location, are still selling fairly quickly or actively. Recently, we had a lady that we were helping buy a home here in the area, and there was a property that came up in Roseville, and it was a great starter home, lower priced, in a great area, not a lot of inventory going on. And we thought that we were going to probably get a deal on that one because it was the winter market. It turns out that that home actually got a ton of interest, ended up with over 5 offers. Now, does that always happen? No, but in areas that are desirable, if it's priced right, it's in a good condition, and more importantly, it's in a good location, those homes are still definitely moving. Now, if you're a seller, I hope that this kind of all at least helps you position your property in the right way if you're considering moving in the next year or so. With that being said, I think what buyers are typically looking for is not just price, condition, and location, is that they're possibly even looking for some incentives to buy the home. And so what we've seen that's been really popular, especially on the new home development side, is when builders are offering lower interest rates. So a lot of the time, sellers can actually offer a form of a credit, which would help bring down the buyer's interest rate, make it a little bit more affordable for them. But also, a lot of the times when we consult with our clients, if they're gearing up to get their home sold, in fact, we just did a few of these like this last week, where I would walk the home with the homeowner and I would suggest certain things that we need to do. And I will say that when it comes to the condition of the property, a lot of the times it's very simple stuff like dry rot around the house, paint, flooring, very minimal stuff that'll spice up the house and really make it look like it's move-in ready, which would attract more buyers. Buyers right now are being pickier, honestly. They are being a lot pickier when it comes to buying the home. So they may like it, but if they don't love it, they won't move on it. So you want to make that home as move-in ready as possible and make it as appealing as possible so you can get that home sold in good timing. Now, I will say the new build competition can be real. We even have a few listings coming on the market throughout this year that will be in new home territory. So if you've seen a lot of new construction homes around you and you might be thinking, shoot, how can I compete with the builder over here? Well, this is something that you can strategize against, and we'd be happy to consult with you on this as well, but it's still very doable. Sometimes people do want a home that's not necessarily from the builder because they know that someone's cared for it, number one. Number two, it has landscaping because the builders don't provide landscaping. And number three, it all really depends on the floor plan. So for instance, if the builder is building a bunch of 2-story homes and the family needs a single-story home, that could be your in on how to get the home sold quicker. Now, with that being said, as a homeowner, strategy also matters. Many of the times our clients are in a position where they need to sell in order to buy their next home. And the good news is that contingent offers are back. With this kind of slowdown in the market, builders and other homeowners are open to accepting contingent offers. Basically, a contingent sale is when you can sell and buy your next home simultaneously. That way you're using the funds from your previous home to close on your next home. So with this kind of slowdown in the market, this is really helping a lot of people transition for this year. And if you're a home buyer, there's still a lot of great opportunities out there, especially in the new build space, which I know a lot of the people watching our channel are focused on new construction. Builders right now are really competing. There's some really great incentives out there. In fact, I just recently helped a veteran get his first home, and he was able to lock in a interest rate at 3.875 on a 7-year ARM. Now, if you're more interested in fixed long-term rates, you can get a 4.5 up to a 5.5% interest rate, depending on which builder you're going to. And especially if you're open to moving on quick moving homes, those are always going to be the best deal in my opinion. Now, that being said, this last month we did have a pretty big uptick in buyer demand. It was the weirdest thing, but probably about a week or two before Christmas, the market really picked up. I know that our team really got busy. We were expecting that holiday slowdown into the new year. Weren't really expecting to get a lot of calls till after the new year, which is understandable. But I've probably had one of the busiest Decembers I've had in a long time. It seemed like people were trying to already gear up for the new year if they were seriously considering buying a home. So that was pretty exciting to see. And I think a lot of local real estate professionals would agree on that. At least the ones that I've been talking to, they also felt like there was a lot of momentum coming early on into the market for this year. So with that being said, I've also seen some builders sell off their inventory. So if they don't have those quick move-in homes or as many of them, they're going to pull back on some of those incentives as well. So keep that in mind if you really start to see some competition pick up on a few of these communities. And one great example of this is I was just meeting with an awesome family a couple weeks ago right here in Roseville. We were touring some of the great new home development, and literally a few weeks prior, the builder was offering some really great incentives, like 6% towards closing costs, which on a home priced at where they were shopping would be about $50,000 in closing cost credit, which would essentially fund their closing costs, but more importantly, would bring down their interest rate dramatically. Now, by the time we got to the community a few weeks later after the new year, the builder had actually sold out of the opportunities they had, and they only had the incentive on maybe one home left, and the rest they were just selling with like the regular standard incentives. So just by waiting a couple weeks, these things can definitely change. And if you want to work with someone who's got a pulse on all the best incentives on new construction homes around here, this is something my team and I specialize in, and you can always reach out to us to get the best deals here in Sacramento. All right, so let's finish it off and see what the rest of 2026, the outlook is going to look like for the Sacramento real estate market. Now, despite the market moving a little bit slower, and it's definitely not raging like it was in 2021, there are still a lot of people moving. You know, you have the D's in real estate, you have diamonds, divorce, death, diapers, and there's probably even more than that. But basically, life changes and things change for people, sometimes for the better and sometimes for worse. And that's when real estate transactions really happen and moves start to happen. But on that as well, we have a lot of people relocating into Sacramento or trying to transfer into Sacramento. Even this last year, we've helped a lot of medical professionals, physicians, nurses, people just looking even for lifestyle change, looking for a better area for their family, better schools, and just a great place to raise their kids. Even some professionals who are just looking for a change in pace of life. So Sacramento has definitely still been a huge relocation market, and fortunately we've been able to help a lot of those clients move here as well. So I think there's still a lot of transactions happening in the market, even though it may not be as hot as it was a couple years ago. Now, I actually want to bring up an article from the National Association of Realtors by their chief economist. We are seeing a little better condition for home sales, with more inventory and the lock-in effect steadily disappearing because life-changing events are making more people list their property to move on to their next home. Next year should be better with lower mortgage rates, and that will qualify more buyers. We are expecting home sales to increase by about 14% nationwide in 2026. And that's very interesting to see that the National Association of Realtors thinks that the sales volume or the overall transaction would increase by about 14% this next year, which would essentially be saying that the market is going to pick up more than what it's been doing. They went on to say that the equity remains, but home prices moderate. Home price growth will be minimal, roughly 2 to 3%, about the same as overall consumer price inflation. So even though we're going to see more transactions possibly happen, prices aren't necessarily going to take off to the races either. Now, take that information as you will, but I personally think that for this next year in 2026, we will see slightly more home sales happening as a whole in the Sacramento real estate market. And I expect prices are probably going to stay a little flat as well. I don't expect them to just take off and keep growing, but I think that they'll still remain pretty steady like they've been doing this last year. Now, one big win to all of this is that in the last couple weeks, interest rates have finally decided to start dropping a little bit more. In fact, as of the time of this video, just about 2 weeks ago, interest rates dropped to their lowest point that they were at in the last 3 years. Now, even though this rate wasn't super low and exciting like most people were hoping, like the reality is If you've been waiting around for the last 2-3 years, this is at least good news or a good step in the right direction. Rates right now, as of the time of this video, are hovering in the low 6s. This morning I checked, it was about 6.1, 6.2 on a conventional 30-year fixed. Now that does change every day, and depending on the loan type you're getting, I've seen better rates and I've seen worse. It is going in the right direction. So hopefully if we see rates keep dropping later this year, especially into the mid to the lower 5s, I do expect more home buyers will be entering the market. So to conclude all this with pricing and softening, I hope you see that the market isn't necessarily crashing, but just going through a softer time. And if you're still thinking about buying or selling a home this year in 2026, you're still looking at where the right place is for you to land here. This is something we specialize in. We help people relocate into Sacramento all the time. You can always reach out to my team and I. Our information is always in the description. But all that to say, I think buyers, you guys have more leverage this year, especially depending on the market that you're buying in. You have a lot more leverage. You can negotiate a lot more on price, on incentives, and possibly even get that lower interest rate. So please don't let that stop you if you are seriously considering making a move. And sellers, it may take a little bit longer to sell that property and you may not get the highest possible price, but you also have to understand pricing is still remaining afloat from what it's been doing over the last couple of years. With the right strategy, I'm sure you will still be able to sell your home. And if there's ever any way that we can help you out, you can always reach out to us. Well, there you have it, the total outlook for the 2026 housing market. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below of what do you think the market is going to do this year. And looking at the data and the stats, has it responded differently from what you thought or maybe have read online, especially about the Sacramento housing market? Let me know in the comments down below. And guys, as always, my name is Sam Golovey. I'd love to be your real estate resource of choice here in the Sacramento area. So whether you're buying, selling, considering investing, or just looking for the right place for you and your family here in Sacramento, you can always reach out to our team. Our information is right there in the description. Give us a quick call or text. There's no obligation. We'd be happy to have the conversation and see if we're a good fit on working together on your next home. Thanks so much. I hope to see you on the next video.